So, who was David Bowie? Was he an alien, a pop star, a movie icon, a recluse? The thing is, the answer is yes, all of them. He didn't just have a career, he had like a dozen of them, sometimes all at once. Today, we're going to try and unpack the incredible legacy of this master of reinvention. Let's get into it.
And you know what? He absolutely 100% delivered on that promise. This quote, it's basically the key to understanding his entire life's work. His career wasn't a straight line. It was this wild, unpredictable, and always fascinating journey. His art was a moving target, right? And that's exactly what made him such a legend.
All right, so before all the lightning bolt makeup, before the otherworldly personas, who was this guy? Well, for starters, his name wasn't even David Bowie.
He was born David Robert Jones, right there in London. And even from a super young age, you could tell music was his thing. I mean, he picked up a saxophone when he was only 13. He spent his whole teenage years hopping between different bands. So the passion? Oh yeah, it was there. But the name? Well, that was going to be a bit of a problem.
Now you'd think this famous name change was some big artsy decision, right? Some grand vision. But nope, the reason was way more down to earth. See, back in the mid-60s, there was another Davy Jones who was already a huge star, the lead singer of the Monkees. So yeah, to avoid getting mixed up, our David Jones knew he had to become someone else. And so in 1966, David Jones becomes David Bowie. He apparently took the name from Jim Bowie, the American frontiersman with that famous knife. This was his first big act of reinvention. But believe me, it was just the beginning.
Okay, so he's got the new name. And with that came a totally new direction for his art. This is the moment, really, where Bowie starts becoming, well, Bowie. And to do it, he looked up to the stars. His first big hit, Space Oddity, was just, what a stroke of genius, timing-wise. It came out in 1969, right as the world was glued to their TVs watching the Apollo 11 moon landing. It was the perfect soundtrack for that moment, and it totally launched his career into orbit. But as big as that was, the real transformation was still on the horizon.
See, Bowie didn't just write songs, he created entire universes. And that brings us to Ziggy Stardust, this flamboyant, androgynous, alien rock star. Think about it. At a time when rock was all about these super masculine rock gods, along comes Ziggy, this thing from another planet that just blew up every single idea about gender, sexuality, and what a rock star even was. It wasn't a costume, no way. It was a full-on cultural explosion.
And the album that went with it, The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust, it wasn't just a bunch of songs. It was a story, a whole narrative that turned him into a global phenomenon. Ziggy was the proof. David Bowie wasn't just a musician. He was a revolutionary, period. In music, in fashion, in culture, all of it.
So if Ziggy was his big breakthrough, everything that came after is what cemented his legacy. Because Bowie's greatest talent, you could argue, it was his absolute refusal to ever stand still. The guy was the ultimate master of reinvention.
Just look at what he did next. He dramatically kills Ziggy Stardust on stage at the absolute peak of his fame, and then just pivots completely. He goes from glam rock to this plastic soul vibe on Young Americans. Then he dives headfirst into the weird, experimental sounds of the Berlin trilogy. And then boom, it's the 80s, and he's back as this massive global pop superstar with Let's Dance. Every single phase was its own unique world.
And here's the thing that's just mind-blowing. All of those crazy artistic risks, they paid off, big time. Through all of these insane transformations, he sold over 140 million records. Just think about that number for a second. It proves that his fans didn't just put up with his changes, they were excited to go on the journey with him. He wasn't just some niche artist's artist, he was a genuine global superstar.
And of course, his influence went way beyond just music. He was an amazing actor, right? The Man Who Fell to the Earth, The Goblin King and Labyrinth, come on. His style was always changing, making him a total fashion icon. And his androgynous looks were so important, so influential for LGBTQ+ culture. It was only a matter of time before the establishment caught up, and yep, he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1996.
For an artist who was always in complete control of his own story, it's really no surprise that he planned his final act with that same level of intention, that same incredible artistry.
So, after about a decade of complete public silence, pretty much everyone thought Bowie had just quietly retired. And then, bam!
In 2013, he shocks the entire world and drops a brand new album the next day out of literally nowhere. It was this massive, triumphant comeback.
But that wasn't his final statement. That was still to come. 3 years later, he releases the album Blackstar. And when it came out, we all just thought, oh, okay, this is another classic Bowie move, bold, experimental, pushing boundaries. It was only later, only in hindsight, that we understood what it really was. And it was just heartbreaking. So here's what happened. He releases Blackstar on his 69th birthday, and just 2 days after that, the news breaks that he's gone, that he had passed away after this private battle with liver cancer. And suddenly, that whole album was seen in a completely new light. It wasn't just his latest record anymore. It was a goodbye, a carefully planned, beautifully executed parting gift, a final piece of art where he looked his own mortality right in the eye.
It's funny, we talk about David Bowie like he was one single artist. But really, his legacy is made up of so many different people, isn't it? The space alien, the soul singer, the pop superstar, the wise elder statesman. So the question he really leaves all of us with is, in this incredible story, packed with so many changes, which David Bowie is the one that lives on for you?